The house always felt different after 11 p.m. During the day, there was noise, phones ringing, dishes clattering, the hum of everyday routines. But at night, when everything slowed down, the silence seemed to grow heavier. Patricia often found herself sitting alone in the living room, the soft glow of a lamp filling the empty space where conversation used to live. Her husband had been traveling more than ever. Work, he said. Opportunities that couldn't be missed. She believed him, or at least she tried to. Their marriage hadn't ended in arguments or anger. Instead, it had slowly thinned into habit. They spoke about schedules, groceries, and responsibilities, but rarely about feelings. Somewhere along the way, their connection had become practical instead of personal. Patricia didn't blame him entirely. Life had been difficult for both of them since her mother passed away the year before. Grief had settled into the house like dust, quiet but impossible to ignore. Everyone coped differently. Her husband buried himself in work. Patricia buried herself in routine. That was around the time Josh moved in temporarily. He was her friend's son, recently finished with school and trying to decide what came next. He needed a place to stay for a few weeks while sorting things out, and Patricia agreed without much thought. The house felt too empty anyway. Josh was polite, respectful, and surprisingly thoughtful. He helped carry groceries, fixed a loose cabinet door, and always thanked her for dinner. At first, his presence simply made the house feel less quiet. There was movement again, laughter occasionally drifting down the hallway, music playing softly from his room. It felt normal. Comforting, even. Some evenings, they found themselves in the kitchen at the same time. Patricia would make tea while Josh searched for a late-night snack. Their conversations started small, movies, books, memories from childhood, but gradually became more meaningful. He listened carefully, asking questions, genuinely interested in her answers. It had been a long time since anyone listened like that. She noticed how easy it felt to talk. There was no pressure, no expectations. Just conversation filling the silence that had once felt overwhelming. Still, Patricia remained aware of boundaries. She reminded herself often that this was simply kindness, nothing more. Loneliness had a way of making ordinary moments feel important, and she refused to misunderstand it. One evening, a sudden storm knocked out the power across the neighborhood. The house fell into darkness, broken only by candlelight. Rain tapped steadily against the windows while the wind moved through the trees outside. They sat in the living room, the quiet stretching between them. "It's strange," Josh said after a while. "How silence feels louder when the lights go out." Patricia smiled faintly. "Maybe because there's nothing left to distract us." They talked for hours that night, not about anything dramatic, just life. Fears about the future. The uncertainty that comes with change. The way loss reshapes people in ways they don't expect. For the first time in months, Patricia felt understood. And that realization frightened her more than the darkness outside. Because it made her recognize what had been missing in her own life, not excitement, not romance, but connection. The simple feeling of being seen and heard. In the following days, she became more thoughtful, more aware of herself. She realized how easily emotional gaps could form when people stopped communicating. It wasn't anyone's fault. Life simply moved too fast sometimes. When her husband finally returned home, everything appeared the same on the surface. Suitcases by the door. Stories about airports and meetings. Familiar routines resumed. But Patricia had changed. She found herself trying harder to talk, to ask real questions instead of exchanging automatic responses. At first, it felt awkward, like learning a language they had both forgotten. But slowly, conversations began to last longer. The distance between them didn't disappear overnight, yet it no longer felt permanent. Josh moved out a week later, grateful for the place to stay and ready to begin his own life. The house grew quiet again. Yet this time, the silence didn't feel empty. Patricia understood something now that she hadn't before. Loneliness wasn't always about being alone. Sometimes it came from feeling unseen, even when someone was right beside you. And connection, she realized, wasn't something that simply returned on its own. It had to be rebuilt, patiently and honestly. Some nights were still quiet after 11 p.m. But now, instead of sitting alone with her thoughts, Patricia would join her husband on the couch. They talked more, listened more, tried again. The house hadn't changed, but the way she lived in it had. And for the first time in a long while, the silence felt peaceful instead of heavy.